Hi, this is Jundo. Welcome to Tree Leaf. I've had the privilege of sitting along here a few times the last few weeks with my lovely, long-suffering wife, Mina, who, by the way, is doing very well after her surgery. Thank you for all the folks who asked. But it's caused some other folks to ask, hey, buddy, what are you doing with a wife? I thought you Buddhist priests are all supposed to be celibate. You know, no sex. Well, this leads to a long story. You see, most Buddhist priests of all schools, not just Zen, in Japan these days, are married with family and kids, and they still function as priests. And this is very different from the rest of Asia, where for thousands of years, and to this day, most Buddhist priests are celibate. And it's led to a lot of misunderstandings between priests in other countries of Asia and Japanese lineage priests. But you know, I'm going to tell you something. I think what's happened has been a good thing, in my opinion anyway. But let me tell you a little bit about the story here. Now, I am married. I have a child. What has happened in the West especially is that we're becoming more and more like Protestant ministers, in the sense that we have wife, often we have outside work. In my case, I work as a translator of Japanese, and then we lead the congregation, we lead the Sangha, just like a Protestant minister. The way this happened goes back about 1,000 years in Japan. About 1,000 years ago, some schools of Buddhism, not Zen, did allow their priests to marry. But about 130 years ago, because of the political situation in Japan, the priests were allowed to marry as a way to weaken Buddhism. The government, the Shinto priests at that time, were kind of anti-Buddhist, and they allowed the priests to marry is a way to weaken Buddhist influence in Japan. But what actually happened is most of the rank and file priests who got married liked it and stayed that way. And to this day, the vast majority of Buddhist priests, including Zen priests in Japan, are married. They function as priests in the temple, but they have a wife and child. Now that's why I say the term Zen monk is very misleading. I wouldn't call myself a Zen monk. Now there are times, if you're training in a monastery and you leave the wife, or you leave the sex and all the worldly concerns behind, the word monk is appropriate. But at other times, these folks come out and they function like a parish priest in a temple, performing ceremonies, performing funerals for their parishioners. Then I would call them a Zen priest, not a monk. But in my case, I try to avoid the word priest and monk. It's very misleading. I just say teacher, Zen clergy, even Zen rabbi. That's a nice one. Rabbi just means teacher. Now, let me tell you why I think this is a good thing. Now, first I want to say, I believe in Buddhism we have room for all of us. We have room for naked hermits who live in caves. We have room for celibate monastics who spend their whole life behind monastic walls. And we have room for me, Zen rabbis, Zen ministers. There is room for all of us. But why this is good, in my view, is for the first time in Buddhist history, really, this has become a practice focused on life in this world, not trying to get out of it, not trying to get away from it, and with our daily concerns. These teachings are powerful, they're beautiful, and they are now coming to be practiced outside the monastery and in the city streets, in our houses, in our offices. Now there was always a possibility of lay practice, don't get me wrong, lay No jokes intended here. Lay means not ordained people, ordinary people with families and jobs. There was always that in Buddhism from the time of the Buddha, but the Buddha himself was very strict and said, if you're going to be a Zen, not a Zen, if you're going to be a Buddhist priest, you leave the family, you leave the world behind, you have your bowl, you have your robes, and no sex. There's no doubt that we're breaking from this. And I don't want to get into long theological discussion, but in my belief, the precepts are wide enough, vast enough to cover this without a problem. Some clergy in the mainland of Asia, they don't like it. Tough tuna. We stand shoulder to shoulder, Buddhist minister, Buddhist priest, just like Catholic priests stand shoulder to shoulder with Anglican priests who are married, with Christian ministers, shoulder to shoulder, not above, not below. Our precepts are just our precepts, the way we practice. And we have brought this into the world, and it's good. More power to everyone to practice in their way. Celibacy is a beautiful path. It's a powerful path for those who wish to go that way. Living and practicing with family, with job, has sometimes been called the even more difficult path, the harder road, because you're not freed of those responsibilities. Sometimes in a monastery, you're sheltered, you're closed off from the world. Here, we're down in the trenches. So there is room for all of us, and I am proud not to hide it. I'm proud to say that I am a married Zen Buddhist clergyman, priest, and we're out and we're proud. By the way, being married, my wife keeps me humble. You know, around our house, it's like, hey, Zen master, go take out the garbage. Okay, shall we sit with that?